Today we're going to go over step ladder safety. This is for course WFED 106. My name is Timothy Parker. The lesson objectives today are ladder conditions, ladder setup, moving on a ladder, and working from a ladder. I have a handout here. Pass these around. Okay. Oh, you got an 8 bird. Go over some things on the ladder. This is a ladder safety checklist. Everybody's got one?
Yep.
Okay. So your ladder conditions, you want to check for cracks on your steps, on your rails, to make sure that they're okay. These are also called beams or rails. You want to make sure that there's no sharp edges on anything, so you don't catch your clothing on here. Make sure that the locks work, because those are important to keep those locked. Is it type 1? All types 1 ladders are industrial strength. And those you'll find here on the sticker. This is a type 2, rated for 375 pounds. Okay? Now ladder setup. You want to make sure that all the feet are set flat and stable on a hard surface. Are all 4 feet touching the ground, and doesn't rock? Okay, so she's sitting solid. Is the surface hard enough to prevent it from settling once it's loaded? So you want to make sure that if you're on soft ground, that it's not going to, the legs aren't going to go into the ground. Is the ladder set up on an elevated platform such as scaffolding or ladder jacks, etc.? It shouldn't be. You cannot set a ladder on scaffolding or on a pick or anything. It has to be set on the ground. Is the bottom of the ladder clear of loose material that can create a trip or slip hazard when stepping on and off ladder? You want to make sure that when you're setting it up, like if you're setting it up near a house, that you don't have any plywood or 2x4s laying around, or especially with 2x4s with nails sticking up in it. Is the ladder clear of any doors that can swing open and hit it? Okay, so if you have a door closed that swings out and you're setting up a ladder and you have to get up there, you want to make sure that you put a sign on the inside of the door, on this side if you had the ladder set up out here, that lets people know that there's somebody working on the other side. Because you don't want to be on that ladder and have somebody come crashing through the door and knock you off the ladder. Are both spreaders that create the A-frame fully open, engaged, and locked? We talked about that earlier. You want to make sure you don't want this to be like this. Say you have a wall there and you can't open it all the way. This isn't safe. It has to be fully open and locked in place. Is the ladder if the ladder is being used in a public area, is the work area marked off to warn passers-by? So if you're working in a public area and there's a lot of pedestrians walking, you want to have cones, have a standard that says, workers working, so they know what's going on. Is the setup clear of any electrical hazards? You want to make sure there's no electrical wires so you don't get electrocuted. Is the ladder clean of loose debris? You want to make sure there's no tar or mud on your steps, because if you have a buildup of mud, that can create a slip hazard. Okay. Is the ladder dry? You want to make sure it's not wet, because a wet surface becomes slippery, especially when you have aluminum, even if you have a wood step ladder. Is the ladder free of anything that could increase the risk of slipping on the rungs? So like I said, you want to make sure that it's clean. These aluminum rungs have little grooves in it to help create so you don't slip. So make sure that those are all cleaned out. Now, moving on a ladder. Does the work face of the ladder does the worker face the ladder when moving up and down it? So when you're working on it, you wanna be on it, you always wanna face this way. Never work over here, twist. You wanna stay facing the ladder. Does the worker stay off the top steps of the ladder? This is the last step you can step on. It has a sticker here that says, do not stand at or above this level. This is it. Each ladder will have a sticker on it. Does the worker maintain a 3-point contact with the ladder? So when you're climbing, you want to be 2 feet, 1 hand, or 2 hands, 1 foot, okay? Always 3 points. So that means you can't carry anything up a ladder with you. Only your tool belt and your tools. You can't carry a screw gun because you gotta have 3 points of contact. There's only 1 worker on the ladder at a time. This ladder is designed for one person. If it was designed for 2, you'd have the same setup on the other side. They do make a ladder where you can have 2, but then you gotta make sure that the 2 people that are on there don't exceed the weight limit. Does the worker's belt buckle remain between the 2 rails of the ladder? We call it the belt buckle rule. You wanna keep, when you're walking up and working, the belt buckle needs to remain in between the side rails, okay? If you lean over and your belt buckle's beyond, you're too far. Does the worker keep his center of gravity over the steps within the 2 rails of the ladder? Okay, you wanna keep your center of gravity, you don't wanna be leaning too far. Does the worker move slowly and deliberately rather than rush up and down the ladder? Don't be in a hurry to get up the ladder or come down, because that's cause for slipping and tripping. Are the worker's hands free of any tools or materials? Like I said, you 3 points of contact. Once you get up there, you can have a bucket with a rope. You can have a rope hooked to your tool belt and have your tools in the bucket and hoist the bucket up. Or most tools like our impact drivers have a little hook that you can hook on your tool belt and carry that up. But your weight limit, as long as your weight and whatever tools you have don't exceed the 375. You gotta check on these, because some of the ladders are only rated 300, some are only rated 250. Is the worker using a tool belt for a small number of tools and other means of support, a greater number of tools and materials? Like I said, you know, if you have more than you can get your tool belt, use a bucket. Is the worker getting on and off the ladder from the bottom? Okay, so this is the bottom. You want to make sure that you're climbing up here and not, you know, jumping off of something to start up here. You always want to start at the bottom, work your way up. Before climbing, does the worker check the ladder's stability? Always check it. I mean, as soon as you set it up, you check it, but even if you walk away to get some tools, come back, somebody could have walked by, bumped it, you want to make sure that it's stable. Okay, now the next point, working from the ladder. Is the length and location of the ladder such that the worker doesn't have to complete the task with an extension reach or extended reach over his head? So you want to make sure you have enough height, because you know, if you get an 8-foot ladder and you want to reach up there and you go, man, if I step on this step here, I can gain access to what I need to do. No, get down, get a 10 or a 12 footer and do the job correctly. Does the worker get off the ladder before repositioning it? Okay, so you don't want to be on the ladder and say, oh, I need to reach that just a little bit, and try to, they call it walking a ladder. You're on it, you just kind of hang on to it and kind of walk it. That's not good to do either. Does the worker face the ladder when moving up and down it? We talked about that already. You always want to face towards the ladder. Does the worker stay off the top steps of the ladder? We talked about that also. Never stand. I've seen, I don't know how many people, you know, they have a 12-foot step ladder and they need to reach that ceiling fan in the ceiling and they stand on that top step. That's not good. Does the worker face the ladder when moving up and down it? We talked about that also. Is there only one worker on the ladder? We did that. Okay. Does the worker keep his, we already did all those. Does the worker store unused tools in a tool belt or on a shelf on the ladder rather than holding multiple tools? So if you have multiple tools, like you need to, say you need to use an electric drill and then a screw gun. So you got two tools, all right? They do make a shelf that you can put on there. You can set them on the shelf, but what you need to do is make sure that that tool is secure on that shelf, so it's not gonna fall off and hurt somebody that's in the lower level. And then does the worker minimize force to complete the task? So yes, so if you're up there and you're trying to push something to get it over there to put that screw in, you wanna make sure that you're not applying too much force, because if you push too hard, you could tip the ladder over. You could also tip yourself and make yourself fall. And then if forces are high, does he complete the task in a stable manner? Okay, so you wanna make sure that you're doing it in a stable manner. If the worker is working above the height at which fall protection is required, is he tied off or otherwise wearing appropriate fall protection equipment? So if you've got a 12-foot step ladder and you're working almost all the way to the top, you should have a harness on with a lanyard so you can have something to tie off on. Like if you were working out in our shop and you had a 12-footer, you could tie off on one of the beams up on the top. Okay? So, also, there is an app that you can have on your phone. It's from NIOSH, it's Ladder Safety, and it has a inspection, selection, and then it has a checkpoint that you can use for all the safety checks. You know, you want to check your feet, make sure your feet are okay. You want to check your steps to make sure they're not cracked. Your side rails, make sure they're not cracked. Your spreader bars. And then it also, your selection, it has straight ladders, step ladders, so you know what to select. Like if you're working at a 12-foot wall, you're gonna need an extension ladder. And everybody know how far does the ladder have to stick above the surface?
3 feet.
3 feet, correct. Same way with a step ladder. Your step ladder should be, if you're gonna be getting off of the ladder, your step ladder should be sticking up above at least 3 feet in order to do that. And when you do that, you do wanna make sure that your ladder is definitely stable, because you don't want that to tip over when you're getting off. So in summary, we covered ladder condition, what to look for, ladder setup, how the ladder should be set up and before you use it, moving on a ladder, going up and down, what direction you should be when climbing, your 3 points of contact, and then working from a ladder, the correct height of the ladder, and then stay in the center and no leaning. Okay? Any questions?